Welcome to the HVAC Financial Freedom Podcast, a show to help you create more revenue, profit, and freedom in your life. Now your host, John Victoria.
Hello and welcome everyone to the HVAC Financial Freedom Podcast. My name is John Victoria, your host, and today we have an exciting episode for you. I'm here with Jonathan Neves. Did I pronounce your last name correct?
How you doing, guys? Yep.
Awesome. From the great state of Massachusetts in around Boston, right?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. And really excited to, get jamming on today's conversation. So for those people that don't know you, would love a quick introduction on the company, all about y'all, the services you provide, as well as, anything else that you thought would be good.
Okay, sure. Yeah. So, my name is Jonathan Neves. Two little boys, Elijah, Josiah. My wife, Devicia, she also does work with me as well. Came over in 2018 and started the company in 2011 out of the back of my pickup truck. Today we're on pace to do a little over $10 million. We do plumbing, heating, air conditioning, and we're looking probably by the end of the year to start becoming an energy auditor / weatherization services as well, just to kind of round out everything green energy.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's so exciting. And it's crazy too, like how we initially connected, it was like so random. So I think a lot of the people who watch this know I'm very involved in the Asian American community. And there was someone I met at one of our pastor retreats, Kevin, and Kevin, I guess he had met you in an event. He was the photographer. And he's like, oh, I know a guy who does some stuff with HVAC. And he brought us together. It was so crazy. Like, what a small world.
It was really, me and Kevin really hit it off. I was at a speaking event that was talking about how to bring more inclusion to Black-owned businesses in the Massachusetts area. It's something I'm very, very passionate about. And he was the photographer there. And I think I just asked him like one question, like, where's the bathroom or something? And it turned into like this full-blown thing. And then, he introduced me to you. And, it was awesome. And then like, a lot of people will say like, oh, I know a guy in HVAC, but like, they're really not like a marketer they're just like a general marketing person, So it was really cool. And then me and you just vibed right away too. And we just talked for like, I don't even know, an hour or more. We didn't even know each other.
And we were like, we're at the same events. Like we were both at the Profit Rocket event, and we're a lot of the same Facebook groups. I was like, wow, I didn't realize, how closely connected we actually were.
Yep.
Awesome. So so such a small world, but so I guess just hop into today's topic. And so the topic for today is how Green Energy, your company, used the Best Buy model to 10x revenue in your service department. But I think the story really started during pandemic, right? Things were crazy. There was this feeling of worry, like this has never happened before, and things are shutting down and concerns. And I know even personally, I was feeling a bit depressed. Like I was like, wow, I can't do the things that I used to do, and I don't really know where the world is headed. And so, could you maybe step back into that moment in time, like how were things for you? Like, what did that look like prior to like really, seeing the traction that you did after things really kicked off?
Yeah, a lot of people my age or even around here, they all have like really young businesses. And so for me, starting off in 2011 to like 2018, my wife came on board. 2019, I started to see a lot of changes happening. I felt so positive about 2020. And then, my second son was born in February 11th, 2020. So I have this newborn, and then like right after that, boom, the whole world shuts down. And this business that I built up at that point for like 9 years, it's pretty much looking like it's going down the tubes. And so, I dealt with a lot of bad stuff. I was in a really dark place for a few months, especially too, because my personality, I really like to do something, and so I feel like I'm not a doer, and I'm like useless and pointless. So that was a tough moment, and really just trying to come to grips with the next phase, because I'm like, well, if I'm going to lose my business, like what's next, And so like I said, there was a lot of emotions going on at that time.
Yeah, and it's like that's your baby. It was like at this point 7, 8, 9 years, and it's like wow,
Yeah.
I really don't know what's going on, especially the pressure, newborn and so many things that you're juggling. So I guess like what was like that shift? You're thinking some of these thoughts, and it seems like there must have been like it seemed like you're back against the wall. Like I got to make something work. So what was that? I guess that transformation moment for you to begin like, oh, let's do something. Let's create something from this space.
Yeah. I started just kind of talking to a lot of people that are way smarter than me, and something kind of clicked where I was like, I have a feeling this isn't going to just go away, and a lot of people are stuck in their homes. And at the time, it was like April, May, so in Massachusetts, it's not really like hot or cold. So I'm like, I have a feeling like in a month or so, it's going to get hot. People are going to be stuck in their homes, and they're going to want air conditioning. So I called up my marketing guy and I was like, listen, like let's go at this full steam. Let's promote virtual sales meetings, um, which were looking back more challenging. It sounds great now, but at the time it was like, people have their cell phones. They're like, yeah, I'm doing like, this. I'm like, put your phone this way. No, that, look.
So virtually, you're literally mean like a FaceTime or like a Zoom call. That's what you mean.
Yeah, yeah. And so, and then actually even since then, we still continued part of our stuff still uses Zoom to this day, but it was a little challenging at first, but it worked. And we're actually able to give, discounts. We say, hey, listen, I know, you're nervous. If you let us come in, basically I was just like, let me get the guys in here, start doing this at cost because I was blown through my savings. And it worked. We ended up, getting pretty busy, set up, and getting the guys set up, and their schedule full. And yeah, before you knew it, people started to be a little bit more comfortable, and we already had this like jump start from like end of April that we were able to get going.
Wow. And that's really awesome too. You did it during the pandemic, but also if you're still doing it now, I mean, imagine that saved you some costs from actually having to drive out there, the gas and the time on the road, the opportunity cost of that time. Like, I guess now, like, what's the split with using that? Like, is it like 70% in person, 30% virtual, or like how are you still using it today?
Now we still do a mostly in home, but what we do a lot of times if we're dealing with like a one legger, or we can tell they're just like people right now are just super adamant at getting like a ton of bids and quotes, and so we use that process as like, hey, you know what? Here's our price. We keep it retail, and then see what they say, and then we'll say, how about this? Like you told me earlier that you're looking at making a decision by when? This Friday. Okay, perfect. And you have someone coming on Thursday, and you're probably just going to put them all together and pick the cheapest one, something like that, whatever they say. All right, how about this? I'm looking at my schedule. Why don't I return back here Friday afternoon? Would that give you a chance for your wife, Sarah, to be home? And then sometimes they say yes, and we'll still keep it in home. But what I like doing with that is it gives them something to say no to. Because a lot of times in sales, people don't give people things to say no to. And so I like to give them something to say no to, so they can say, so John, you could say, yeah, no, honestly, why don't you just email it to me? I said, how about this? I'll do you one better. Why don't we meet? I know you said Sarah comes home at like 5 o'clock. You probably want to get settled in, get some food. Why don't we meet at 7? I can break off from the family, and we could do a Zoom call. And that way I can make sure you and Sarah both have equal access to the information. And then it's really hard to say no to that because, like I said, I already gave you something to say no to before, and that works really well. So we do it mostly for that. So we end up still doing quite a bit of Zoom calls. I'd say, yeah, probably, again, they're still in person, but there's that 70-30 split probably where we're still following up that way. And it actually works really well because here's the, probably throwing up too many nuggets for people, but the cool thing is so many people around the country, they'll complain, oh, there's one-leggers. Dude, if you come to my house to give me a quote, I'm probably not going to be home, or my wife's not going to be home. Like, there's just, you're not going to get us both here at the same time, most likely. So it's kind of back to what we're talking about with Best Buy and these different companies. You have to learn how to innovate. And now where we have technology at our disposal, this isn't the trades from the 1950s. Like, use technology to your advantage. And that's one of the ways that my guys do that really well. because if I'm on a Zoom call with you and your wife, chances are no one else is. And chances are your wife is like, well, these are just a bunch of numbers. And now I can explain, hey, Sarah, can I explain to you why our quote is $2,000 more than the other ones? Yes. And I'm doing something that no one else had the opportunity to do.
That's amazing. Yeah, having the opportunity to be with them as you're reviewing the proposal. Because if they're just reviewing it and it's like, you told the husband and he's passing over the information to the wife, now it just looks at the price, right? There's no one to make the case for the value that you're providing, you're adding. That's amazing. And I also just loved the idea of just like getting them to say no, because I think a lot of folks in sales are thinking about what's the yes ladder, get them to say yes. But it's almost like, wow, like, no, it's like the reverse. And, I think it gives people a sense of control maybe as well. If they say no.
The book, I'm like obsessed with, you're probably familiar with it. Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. Yeah. And so like, that's something I've really adopted in my personal life in sales, where I'm always looking to get some sort of negative question, something that's going to connotate like a no response. And so that for me is a very easy one where, hey, if you don't want me to come in your home, I get it. You guys are busy. You're getting a bunch of quotes. You probably don't want to do this all over again. Your time's valuable. Why don't we do this? I'll do you one even better. And then I come with a Zoom one.
I love that. Now for the Zoom, let's say that a company doesn't currently do these Zoom appointments with their customers. How would you advise someone who would want to implement that into their business?
Yeah, so really my sales guys are the ones that really control that process, which they should, like it's their call, right? So they should take ownership of that. And so even if you're a salesperson at a different company, and, I get this a lot because I talk to a lot of different sales guys, business owners around the country that, call me for advice or, PM me on Facebook or whatever. And I hear these same excuses from everyone, and some sales guys, oh, my company does this, my company does that. Dude, like you go into a lot of different sales companies, they don't even have leads to give you. You have to go out and find your own or knock on doors. Like you get like a company vehicle, gas card, leads that are just given to you. And it's like, oh, my company doesn't do this or that. Like, just,
where's the beanbag chairs? You're like, where's the beanbag chairs and where's the ping pong table? I need to get.
Take ownership, man. Like to me, if that's my call, I'm doing whatever it takes. Like if I need to go back on a Sunday at 5:00, I'm going back. Like I do it as the owner. Like there's some sales I still do. My wife is used to it now. She's like, where are you going? Sunday at 10:00 in the morning. Hey, I'm going to the home. Why? Because I know no one else is going to do it. I'm going to be the only person there in front of you and Sarah. And now it's Sunday. It's calmer. It's quieter, right? Or even if it's a Zoom on Sunday, they're both in the room and, you could use a little bit of rapport and humor. And it's like, to me, it's like I actually love those calls because they're almost always in the bag,
Yes. I love that. So I guess in terms of someone implementing it, so let's say that there is a salesperson and they would just, I guess they would have to get maybe some corporate approval, but then just have that link as an option for them. Is that just part of the sales process? It's like, hey, this is one of the options that we have to, we can meet via Zoom these dates instead of us driving over or.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so like what my guys will do is they'll usually do them in the evening. And so they'll let the CSRs know at the front office, hey, I booked a Zoom call for 5:00 on Thursday. Can you just put it as a task in my schedule? And then that way they know not to book anything for them at that time. And then, the salesperson just sends the link and does what they got to do.
That's amazing. Again, and I also think it's great because, you're providing these options, but also, again, they don't have to go out there. So in case they, want to hop to personal business right after, since it's late in the evening or take another call, it's not having to drive out and then drive back. So that's really, really cool. Awesome. So I guess maybe to transition about this idea of the Best Buy model. I loved it how you explained it on our past call. Like, could you maybe talk about the inspiration behind it? I know there's a moment you're like, wow, this is really innovative, and maybe just walk through that philosophy first.
Yeah. So to get there, to build some context, like this has all happened more recently because like Best Buy that model was really during COVID. And so for COVID, big box store, selling electronics, crushing it, right? Doing really great. Then COVID hits and nobody's out able to go to your stores. They shut down the stores. And so their sales started to really hurt, obviously. And so they had to make a really big decision. And so the CEO talked about how it was a huge decision that they made at the time where obviously looking back, it worked out really well for them. But what they decided to do is close the stores to the public and open up curbside pickup, something they didn't have before. And it sounds simple, like when you do the process and you're like, I went online, went to the store, picked it up, went home. But understanding like all the intricacies in that process just really blew me away. And so I started like really meditating on all those things and like processing it. So I'm like, man, like you had to come up with the process, write it all out. Then you had to have like your web developers put this on the website. Someone had to test that. Then you had to create workflows like, hey, when someone clicks curbside, what stores are going to go to? Yeah. When it goes to that store, they have to get alerted to say, hey, like Jonathan is purchasing a new, Xbox controller. How many do they have? So now you have to have some communication with the warehouse to be able to even know how many are even there or not there. At that point, then, it gets alerted. The warehouse then just goes, they finds it. Then you get an email saying, hey, like this process here, someone had to build all that. Then you show up and then you go to a parking lot. Well, now this parking lot, they're like, well, where are people going to park? Our parking lots are huge. So then they designated certain lanes and with signs saying, lane 1, lane 2, lane 3. Someone had to create those signs. Someone had to, paint the lanes, and some of the ones near me, they actually have different colors for the lines. They had to pay someone to do that during that time. Then they had to do all the training that went behind this. And the part that I find really fascinating about it is it's not like they said, hey, we have this really brilliant idea. We're going to do curbside pickup and it's going to be so revolutionary and we have like a year to get it done. They needed to get it done like yesterday. They got all that done in like crazy amount of time and created this experience. And that's the part that I really find interesting is because at the time, everybody's home. And because people are home, like I said, maybe they had a rinky-dink PlayStation controller. And if you're like me and you get mad, you probably go through a few of them.
Throwing in like, John's got anger problems. He's gone through 5 controllers this week.
Yeah, hopefully my wife's not listening because that's definitely a source of contention in our household. So now I'm like, damn it, now I need another controller. So you go on Amazon, but everybody's on Amazon. And so, for us, I feel like, we have just boxes coming every day at my house. But now, because everybody's using Prime's not 1 day, 2 days anymore during COVID. It was taking a lot longer sometime. And I want stuff now, just like everybody else does. And so Best Buy thought of that and said, hey, you want it now. How about we create a different buying experience where you can literally go online, pick it, and within an hour, half the time, or even less, they'd be like, yep, it's ready. I drive 10 minutes to my closest Best Buy. I show them my ID. I don't have to be worried about catching anything. It's fully contactless. They put it in my trunk. I drive home, and within the hour, I'm back to playing games and smashing controllers, right? And so, like, that whole process is something I really thought about because now you fast forward past COVID, of course, just like everybody else, we were like drinking rocket fuel and the company exploded, right? And, we went from 1 million to 2.5 to 4 million to 7 million last year to on pace for 10 million this year. But between last year and this year was a crazy thing because when I started my company, it was right after the 2008, 2009 recession. So I never ran my business through a recession before. And for us, we always had this like 95-5 split where 95% of our revenue came from our install department and 5% came from service. And, you talk to gurus and like, oh my God, like you got great numbers. That's amazing. You're doing awesome. But what no one ever really talked about, except really one person, Mickey Stone, she's my business coach at Certain Path. She's phenomenal. She was always the one that's like, you really need to get your service department in line. I'm like, yeah, but we're killing it over here. We're growing crazy numbers year over year. But now you fast forward to like September, October 2022, and the amount of marketed leads we got just tanked overnight. And buying decisions change with customers, where they were typically like, yeah, we'll take your top package with all the bells and whistles. Now they're like, you guys are $20,000 more than the competitors, and they're picking the cheap guys. And so I really needed to change my model. And so I didn't know what to do. And so I started like looking up this type of stuff, looking up at, like I said, like I remembered the Best Buy model. And I said, we really need to innovate our entire process. We need to switch our whole business model around where we're going to provide an experience. And in addition to that, create something that you're not going to be able to get somewhere else. And so for us, what we did is we said we have to really change it from being such a heavy install company to more of a service-based company, and then look at that entire model for how we're doing business and change every single part, from the way they greet the customers, to the way we book the call, to the way the guy comes in, does the call, to how we do the lead turnover process. We have a project supervisor that comes behind them and specs out everything. That's part of our buying journey that we let them know that's very unique. And we do that in order to make sure that we don't miss anything, and that your system's up and running as soon as possible and you're super happy with it. And then we send the install team with equipment and everything stocked, ready to go. And then afterwards, we send a service technician to do a quality check to, again, just ensure we didn't miss anything for you and that you're super happy. And that way, too, what we found is a lot of homeowners will learn to live with things. Like they'll learn to live with like a funny noise, or air's blowing too much in this room and not this room. That's the time where we can come out and make sure that we tweak all those things for you, because we don't want you to live with anything. And then lastly, we back it up with guarantees and warranties that most of our competitors around here don't have, because we just made them up, just created them ourselves. And so once you put that whole entire thing together, it sounds great, it sounds easy, but then just like I said with that Best Buy model, we need to have this done yesterday because we're not making any money right now. I got to get guys trained up that weren't service technicians before. I got to then train them up because, what we found is once we started doing this, guys were going to service calls and then they're like, hey, John, so you want a new furnace? Okay, I'll have the office give you a call. Like by the time the office calls you, you're like, oh, no, I'm good. I don't care. So I'm like, we have to tweak that whole process and retrain on that. And so every single step has taken like processes, writing it out, building. I build up so many PowerPoints, and then we do like off-site trainings, or we have a training room in our office where we do it on-site. And we're just constantly doing this to refine those processes. So that way now we're about 70-30. So like 30% of our revenue comes from service, 70% comes from install, 30% service. And what it's really done is it's helped us be more like this. And so now I'm never going back. Like just like Best Buy, you notice they still have curbside pickup because there's some people that actually prefer that, right? Oh, I forgot. The other thing that really was interesting with Best Buy is once things started to open up a little bit more, they didn't just open up the floodgates. They actually, they have like, 1,000 stores around the country. And with about 700 of them, they started doing one-on-one appointments. So something you couldn't even get anywhere else, right? They created this unique buying experience where, yeah, you can go ahead and buy that dishwasher or washer machine online. But what does it look like? How does it feel? How big is it? Like, can I fit a comforter inside? Like, I don't know. Well, hey, you know what? I can drive down to my Best Buy, make an appointment. They'll give me in half an hour an appointment. And I'll literally have somebody there to be like my personal concierge to provide this immersive experience to help me with this. John, what do you think the chances are that if you're doing that, somebody's going to walk out with a washing machine? Especially if you're making it affordable. So to me, it was the same thing, right? Like, how do we make it where we can provide this experience like nobody else, and then also figure out a way to make it affordable with financing and stuff? And that's really helped change the game for us as well.
Love it. And one thing I'm pulling out from this as well is you really do listen to your customers, and you're monitoring how the market is shifting, and also just understanding like sentiment, like, the fact that Zooms and all these things are now available. Before 10 years ago when you started this, that wasn't the case.
Nope.
Things shifted. Pandemic, right? There's just a different state of mind. There's more fear around what's out there. I don't want to give this to my family, all this, my health. And then just like listening in and keying in on, what are those needs? And also with that, you designing unique solutions, and it sounds like also guarantees that no one else in your market was doing. And so it's no wonder why you grew as well, because you have your ear listening to the market, listening to your customers, which is amazing. And also I wanted to pull out as well. I mean, you said you 10x'd your revenue as well in the service department, right? It's the 70-30 split, but it was like a multiplier. So it wasn't a small thing either.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Our service department was pretty dismal. It was more of like, they were just there to kind of really clean up installs. Oh, sorry. Can we pause, or is that?
Oh, yeah, we'll cut that.
Okay, let me just grab that. Someone's at the door.
Cool. While Jonathan set it out, got a quick door thing, but yeah, if anyone's listening right now, just make sure we're capturing some of these takeaways. I think the main thing for us as individuals and as company owners is really to think more innovative. There's this book that I really love. It's called The Innovator's Dilemma. And basically the idea behind it is that bigger companies, it's harder for them to change. So it's really magical that Best Buy moved in the way that they did. But if you're listening to this and you are a smaller company, maybe it's just yourself, maybe you have a small crew of 5, 10, 15, 20 people, you have the ability and capacity to change because it's not as big of an infrastructure to shift. And so, as things go along, really main thing is really think about the advantage that many of you have by being a smaller company. That innovator's dilemma, these big companies, Best Buy seems to be an exception, but if you're a smaller company, you have the ability to change, you have the ability to retrain, and you have the ability to nimbly move to really, get things moving, changing, and implementing some of these great ideas from the podcast. So with that, I'll bring back Jonathan on, and we'll keep on rolling.
Yeah, and I love what you were saying, because honestly, like that's the thing right here. Like I've spoken to so many business owners right now that they just seem like they're defeated. Like they're just like, oh man, like I've lost. It's like, listen, man, like again, we've been drinking rocket fuel for like the last 3 years. That's not sustainable. Like if you probably look at the numbers, we're probably like back on par with 2018, 2019 and just kind of moving. I'm not saying like there's absolutely something going on with the economy and things are happening, but I really believe like it's all about your belief system, right? And so for me, it's like, what can I do to stand out during this time? Because absolutely, like I know the customer's perception is going to look and say cheaper's better right now, right? And understanding why, like I get it. Like, money's tight, inflation's high, you're getting less for your dollar. And so you're probably looking and saying, hey, like, let me take these 3 companies, put them all in a bucket and just pick one out, especially the one that is the cheapest, right? And like actually being able to communicate that with the customer, and they're like, yeah, pretty much, you're right. Yeah, I completely understand. But here's my greatest fear. My greatest fear is you're going to spend a lot more money trying to save money. Does that make sense? And then I can explain how that process works. And then what I'll usually say is, I know when I came in, you told me you really loved our reviews, and you had you saw us on one of the mommy sites on Facebook or something, and a bunch of people referred us. And thank you so much for saying that. But a lot of those customers felt the same way you did. They were getting other quotes. They had people cheaper, but they decided to go with us. Can I tell you why they decided to go with us still? And then now I'm explaining whatever unique value proposition. And this is the point that I stress, because I'll ask people, what's your unique value proposition? And it's like, well, we've been in business since 2005. Well, hey, guess what? In that bucket, one of those guys was in business from 1997. So now, I'm an expert in this, and we do commercial grade installations. I hear that. I'm a consumer. I don't even know what that even means. Like that doesn't mean anything. What is that? Like if I go back to my wife and I'm like, yeah, babe, I spent $20,000 today, but they do commercial grade installation. She'd be like, you know. So you gotta have something really tangible, something that they can take back to the bank that they could talk to their um, spouse about and say, okay, cool, the price is here, but I'm getting so much more value going with this company, even though they're more money than someone else. And if you can do that and articulate that well, and that process can be dark as well. For me, it was tough because I'm like, we focus on green technology and greener solutions. Well, you know what? In Massachusetts, they're throwing so much money around that local oil companies that were like, oil, they're now changing their name to like energy. And they're saying that they're specializing in energy efficient solutions. So you got to find like whatever it is. If it's like for us, it's our buying journey and the services we provide after the sale. That's what we really get into and talk about. Finding out whatever that is for you. And then, like I said, not be, like you said, using technology or whatever it is to innovate, to be different in any way possible right now is what's going to help people. Because, it's like anything. You look at Blockbuster and Netflix. Blockbuster was on top of the world for decades and decades. Had the opportunity, I don't know what year, maybe 2000, to buy Netflix for like 50 million. Laughed Reed Hastings out of the room. But it's because they couldn't see what was coming. They couldn't figure out how to innovate. This industry is changing. It's in the next 5 years, this conversation is probably going to be outdated,
Mm-hmm.
and it's going to be like, oh man, we're on to way bigger and different things now. Are you willing to learn how to, instead of saying, oh, I've been doing this since 1990, we're going to keep doing this. Okay, then you're probably going to end up like Blockbuster, so.
Mm-hmm. Man, I love that. And it's really controlling what's within your control, right? It's, what's happening in the market is happening. And then it's almost like choosing, I don't want to race to the bottom on price. I'm going to choose to run a different race. And it sounds like a piece of that is like, okay, it's reframing the conversation for the customer, but also, what's that additional value add where the price is not the most important thing. I think there's always going to be people like that, right?
Yeah, and I'll give you another one too, because we're talking about, and I want this to be very like useful for people in your audience. So like, I'll talk to a lot of salespeople at other companies, like, yeah, but our company's this, and our company doesn't have this or doesn't have that. Here's a big thing. Like I was talking to my buddy Chris Murphy at Blue Bear, another good-sized company up here, and one of his guys does something I love. He's like, hey John, here's the thing. Like, well, this is looking at the screen opposite. He's like, listen, I'm just Jonathan from Holbrook, Massachusetts. Like, forget the company. This is what I would do if I were you, and this is like how I'd help, right? And that's the big thing that I talk to my sales guys about is like, what's green energy's unique value proposition? That's great, but they're buying you. What's your unique value proposition? So like, if you're there and you're like, again, like, well, I've been doing this since I was young, yeah, okay, great. Like one of my guys has a phenomenal segue where he talks to them and he's like, oh, you're living in Boston, Massachusetts. How long have you lived here? Oh, that's fantastic. He's like, yeah, I actually live in Tingsboro, which is about an hour away. And they're like, Tingsboro, you drive all the way from Tingsboro? He's like, it's a funny thing. I actually passed about 50 different companies on the way down here. And you want to know why I drive all the way from Tingsboro to come here? And it's like because people are just like, yeah, why? Like, you're crazy. And he's like, it's because of this. And it's all unique value proposition, all the things that we do differently. And then he's like, and here's the thing. You look at my reviews, you'll see my name all through there and how I personally handheld each of my customers because I personally guarantee that this is going to be an investment and a protection on your investment. And when I'm done, I'm going to give you my cell phone number, and it's the same number my mom calls me on. You can call me day or night, weekends, it doesn't matter. And it's like money. Like that whole phrase that he does, it just like his closing rate is higher this year in a down economy than it was last year. And our prices haven't. It's not like we had to slash anything, but it's because what is it that makes you unique? What is it that makes green energy unique? And then really hitting that home, because to me, like with anything, especially with sales, like you already know the answers to the test. Like if I asked you for your business, like what are your biggest objections you get, you're going to be like, boom, boom, boom. Oh, it's this, it's that, it's this, it's that. But then when I say, cool, how do you overcome them? A lot of times it's like, well, yeah. And to me, it's like you have the answers to the cool. You have the questions already to the test. Like all you got to do is study them and know what you're going to say and have that in your bag. And so like that's kind of the thing that we do here, where it's like, yes, the company's great, but at the end of the day, they're going to want to buy from a real human. What makes you different? What are you going to do different for me that nobody else is going to offer me?
Wow. I love that. Yeah, and really personalizing it. I love the line, this is the same number my mama calls me on. Damn. I was like, damn,
Right?
that's amazing. I was like, I need to write that down.
When Kevin said that, my guy Kevin Plato, he's crushing it this year. It gave me chills. We were in training and he said that, and I was like, dude, I am so stealing that line. Like,
that is amazing. Oh my gosh. Wow. Yeah. So I guess maybe this is a quick transition as well. One other interesting thing we talked about in our prior conversation was how you've begun to hire a number of folks from the Philippines. And obviously, if anyone doesn't know, I'm Philippine. My parents are from the Philippines and immigrated over a long time ago, and so anytime I see folks hiring and putting back into the economy, I'm so happy about it. And so I wanted, I guess for the business case, I'd love to hear more about how that came about, because from what I gathered, you're able to cut costs. You were able to do a lot in terms of efficiency. Like, could you talk us through the process, like the problem, and then kind of like how this idea all came about?
yeah. Well, one of the issues we found during the fall last year and the winter this year was we were very like top heavy. Like we had a lot of overhead, a lot of people in the office, and like anybody, we had to trim the fat in a lot of areas to cut costs and be more efficient. But in with that, I remembered a conversation I had with a couple business owners, and I'm really blessed with that too. Like I'd say that's a whole nother hack that I would talk about is like make sure you really network really well with people in your area. I mean, a couple buddies of mine, just to shout them out, like Steve Akean at Akean Plumbing, Anthony Mound at Trust One, like I said, Chris Murphy at Blue Bear. We have such a great friendship, but also network where we share stuff with each other. And so about, I don't know, maybe a year ago, Anthony was talking about how he had somebody remote that did, I think, bookkeeping and something else for him. And we're kind of making fun of him. And, we're all a bunch of guys. We're like, you're an idiot. It's like doing stupid stuff like that. Plus, he's easy to make fun of. And so we're doing that. And then, like, after that, when this all happened, I'm like, oh, man, Anthony's kind of smart. I gotta call him up. And he was being like super secretive about like who he uses and who he goes through. So then my other buddy Steve, I'm like, yo, who is Anthony using for like his remote people? And so Steve's like Steve's the one that really blew my mind with this, because he's like, bro, my entire front office is remote. He's like, my front office manager, my dispatcher, all my call center people. And so I really stole a lot of this concept from Steve. I definitely want to give him credit on this, because what he does is he has a Zoom every day. They're in a virtual meeting, and they all have virtual rooms that they're in. And so him or any one of his managers can pop into these rooms, listen to how they're answering calls, talk with them, give them assignments, whatever. And so it's like they're actually part of his company. And so I was like, this is right up my alley. I think this will be phenomenal. And so there's a company, Sphere Rocket, the one I use.
Oh yeah, Sphere Rocket. Yeah. I saw the CEO speak, Justin, not too long ago.
Yeah. So we use them, and it's very inexpensive. They set up the whole thing for you. Make sure you plan enough time for the interview process, because they bring like 10 or 12 people for you to interview. It's like by the end you're like, oh my god, like okay, I'm done. But man, some of these candidates are and it's like anything. Some of them are okay, some of them are not that great. But like I've gotten some rock stars from this, where I mean now we're pretty much the same. We have our dispatching and call taking is all remote. What I really appreciate is their work ethic's very different than most people I find in America. where they're just really hungry for it. And you give them assignment, you give them a reading assignment or anything, they get it done. They take information well. Like right now, actually, right before this, I'm writing up an entire training I have for them tomorrow, just to streamline the process and get a little bit better. Because just like anything, when you implement something, you're gonna find issues. And I'm really big into that, like Jocko Willick's. If you ever look up YouTube, Good, Jocko Willick's Good. It's like 3 or 4 minutes. And like I live my life by that model where it's like you run into problems and most people are like, oh my God, see how this remote concept isn't going to work. It's a failure. There's all these problems. I look and be like, good, because now it gives me an opportunity to fix them and get past it. And now give me the next problem. What's the next problem? Okay, good. I found that. I can keep it moving. So we've had some issues where like a town was like literally like a stone's throw away, and the customer's like, hey, do you guys service Jamaica Plain? They're like, no, we don't. The customer's like, oh, okay, bye. Call them back.
They're like Jamaica. They're like, they thought that Jamaica. Like, no, we ain't international.
Right? I didn't think of that. Yeah. But that's the thing, man. Like, there's gonna be hiccups in anything. Like, it is what it is, right? If I had somebody brand new off the street that spoke English completely well, they're gonna have problems with. I mean, not English, but was from America, right? Because they actually speak really good English over there. So yeah, for me, it's really helped reduce my office expenses a lot. And what else has helped me do is, as we continue to grow, I've been able to promote some of these call takers who I feel like were a little underutilized because they had skill sets that were actually like even better than just taking calls, where now I'm making them outbounding managers and inside sales managers and stuff that they're working. So I'm still keeping these people, but now they're actually helping me produce money and be more efficient,
Wow, that's amazing. And also, like you said about issues, I think of issues as your moat. Actually, Warren Buffett always talks about build a moat around your business. If there's a ton of problems to get to the solution, great, because the people behind you are like, I don't know if I want to jump that moat. So I think, obviously we don't want just more and more problems, but the problems are not really a bad thing. They're your moat to protect you. They're your competitive advantage because you were willing to go through the issues and the problems and solve them and come up with a solution and get to the other side. And now in a way, you're insulated from someone who is just not willing to make the sacrifice. So yeah,
100%.
Absolutely love that. Great. And again, such a small world, right? First it was Kevin in the beginning and then Justin. Like it's great. I'm probably gonna message him right after. Like, hey, you got a shout out on the podcast. Yeah, so such a small world. So I guess maybe let's close with that, because you mentioned the importance of, it's really a peer network. It's your mastermind, the group of people you surround yourself with. Could you maybe talk about how you built that? Right. I think it requires a certain mindset to have, right, of abundance versus scarcity. Like, oh, he's my competition, I can't tell him nothing. So could you talk about like how to build that sort of like group of guys or guys and gals who are really good? How did you do that? Like build that group up?
Yeah, trying to remember back. So I think we were in like service Avengers groups, and I would see these guys mentioning Massachusetts and stuff. And if I could do that over again, that's something I would have done from day one, because I very much am not good at networking. It's not something that comes to me naturally. And so for me, I was kind of like a lone ranger for a long time. And I feel like that's also why I just plateaued and just stayed at $1 million for a long time, because I didn't really get to open up my mind to other possibilities and learn like, oh, wow, that's actually possible. This is possible, right? And so there was that. So once I started really networking more, like I got involved with Certain Path, and they helped me a lot. With them, there's contractors around the country, and Certain Path is like Nexstar and a bunch of these. They're all the same basically. And but that helped me to network. And then I was like, well, this is great. I'm networking with all these people around the country. But what about right here in my backyard? And we're also part of Joe Crisera's Service MVP, and they had a training down in Florida that that I went to. And when I went to that, Steve Akin was there, and me and him just hit it off. I'm like, dude, you're like 20 minutes away from me, and we should link up when we get back. And you know how you say that to a lot of people, and it's just kind of like never happens. But we sure did. And then like I was like, hey, I have this buddy Chris over here, and Chris is running a $10 million, $11 million company in a different area. And then he brought Anthony over, and then from there just kind of kept growing. Where I mean, we have like our own little group now on WhatsApp, and we share stuff all the time. And it's kind of funny too, because like, you know, we'll have people that'll like put resumes into all our different companies, or hey, I have somebody that's working for you that wants to come over here. What's up with that? So like, guys, be careful, because it's a small world now over here. Like I'm pretty connected to a lot of companies, you know. But what you said though was 100% that, because I still get a lot of hate online from different companies that aren't part of our little network. And they'll be, oh, you know, you're an internet vulture. You're always online. You're always on the town pages posting stuff or whatever, right? And I'm like, dude, like, there's so much work out here for all of us. That scarcity mentality is so 1970s, in my opinion. Like I've gained so much from having that abundant mindset. And I know I can speak for the other guys I mentioned too. It's the same way, where we'll get together and we're very vulnerable with each other. That's the other thing I would say too, where we're not like, oh, dude, I'm doing this much this week, this month, and oh, you know, you're not doing. Like instead, we're like, hey, man, here's all my issues that's going on. Are you seeing the same stuff? I am. Hey, you know what? Well, you should try this or that, and we're constantly sharing stuff. And so that. Like I said, if I could do it over, I would have done that from day one, just really reached out. And that's all I did. I just literally reached out to different people, hit people up on Facebook. Hey, I noticed you're not that far from me. Like, you ever want to grab a cup of coffee and link up and talk about it? And sometimes they're not even in my service area. So I've had customers that are in that person's area that I'm like, hey, let me send you over here as a really good friend of mine, and vice versa.
I love that. And yeah, I think some keys from that is, first it's vulnerability, right? You know, being able to accurately share like, hey, these are my problems, this is what's going on. And it's scary, right? You know, some people like, you know, it's like, oh, if I reveal my problems, they're going to use it against me, this and that. So I think the foundation you had was really trust, knowing that, hey, these guys have my best interest in mind and I have theirs. And as a group, like we can lean on each other. Yes, we're closer in the same market, but we can lean on each other. And, you know, I really believe and I really trust in these guys that I'm with. And I think it's cool as well that you're aiming towards similar goals, right? You know, if you, I think it was Jim Rohn that said you're the average of your 5 closest friends. And it's like, if your closest mastermind group or your closest friends are folks that want to stay put, all right, you'll most likely also stay put, right? It just happens. But these guys are like, okay, we're going upwards and onwards. We're trying to grow. That naturally is going to impact you. And I think lastly, you just feel like you're not alone. I think being a business owner, you sometimes like you can't go to your employees with some issues or something that's like on your mind that's weighing on you. Maybe you don't want to, but it's like other business owners who've gone through it. You're like, wow, like I actually am not crazy. Like this, other people are experiencing this too. And so I absolutely love that. And the power of the mastermind, it's massive if anyone's not in it or hasn't created one yet. But I guess with that, you know, if you are looking to build a mastermind, we do have a Facebook group for the podcast, HVAC Financial Freedom. So anyone who's listening, join the group and we can try to make some magic happen. So I think we're coming up on the end of the episode. Jonathan, this was an amazing. There's, literally so many nuggets. Like someone will need a wheelbarrow to catch all the golden nuggets that you tossed out here. You know, from the Philippines to the masterminding to growing the service department to the Best Buy principle. This was by far one of my favorite episodes that I've recorded.
Awesome.
And
me too, actually.
Yeah, so it's amazing. And I have no doubt that, you know, what you're building and where you're looking to go, it's going to be magical wherever you end up planting your flag and wherever you want to build. So,
thanks,
any final words before we hop on off?
I just say, man, thanks for, you know, reaching out to come on the podcast. You know, in addition to the abundance mindset, I just love seeing people grow. Like this industry has saved my life, like, and I've seen what it's done for me and my family, and what it's done for the people that work for me. Um, and I get sad sometimes because like I know that there's a lot of companies right now that are kind of struggling. They're going through stuff. Like I said, I get a lot of texts and stuff, and people like, I don't know how much longer I can deal with this, and I need some help. I need to restructure. And the thing is, like, listen, man, like, have the mentality that you're always going to get through it. This is not going to take you out. I'm going to be 100% vulnerable right now. Like during the January, February time, we were so slow that I'm like, if this stays going this way, I'm going to go bankrupt. Like I need to call bankruptcy attorneys. I don't even know what this process looks like. And I was like super depressed because it's just like, are you kidding me? Like, again, like go through all this to have an 11, 12-year-old business just to see it go down the drains. There was a lot of emotions behind that. And this was all happening during this whole transition I was talking about. And again, reaching out to some of these people I was just mentioned earlier really helped because they're like, dude, I'm going through the same thing, but like, here's what I'm trying, you should try this. And we just kind of lean on each other. And, there's times where I'm going through it and let's say Steve or something is there and Steve's like, yo, dude, stop being a little pansy and, pick up your, pants and keep on it. And he just says whatever the right thing is. It'd be like, you know what, you're right. And vice versa. I remember, I was like, let's go, like, we're getting this, let's go. And I could tell he was kind of like, yeah, man, I don't know. And I'm like, nah, dude, where's that energy from before, bro? We got this, And so like, so that's my mentality. It's just like, we've all gone through stuff. We've had issues. We all got through the beginning part of COVID and thought our businesses were going to fail. And somehow we got through that and we keep going. So just continue to innovate. Don't get stuck in your old ways. Don't listen to the noise about all the stupidness happening around. And let's just keep moving forward.
Let's keep moving forward. Onwards and upwards, everyone. Cool. Well, Jonathan, I appreciate you so much. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Hope you got some value. And I mean, if you didn't get any value, you just weren't listening. Like that's the only way. But yeah, thank you again, Jonathan. Thank you, everyone. And we will catch you on the next episode. All right. Take care, everyone.